I created the Cape Farewell project very much out of artistic inquiry. You know, I got very interested in the work that the climate scientists were doing, and especially with the mathematical modeling. So if you're talking 12, 15 years ago, you know, they knew something. They knew that climate was a real issue, but they weren't getting it out into the media in any kind of way or any kind of profile. And so therefore the idea of actually using art or using the film language to try and get into that messaging was very exciting for me as an artist. Each of us have been affected in our lives by an artwork. It could be a poem, pop song, or painting, and it kind of stays with you. You know, years and years and years go by, and you still really treasure that artwork that's really touched you. And I think that that's the power. If you can then align it to the environment and our care for the planet, or any of the kind of issues around climate change, then wow, you've got something that could be lasting and really affect people deeply. The way I started this and the way I addressed it, I mean, again, it's my love of sailing, but could we take a sailboat into the high Arctic and actually put on board scientists and artists, and then work with the scientists who are doing all their surveying and measurement, at the same time using that incredible place, the Arctic, to inspire the artists. I remember one of the Arctic journeys we were on, I think it was the 7th one, and I've built a really close friendship with a chief scientist, Dr. Simon Boxer, who's an oceanographer. And I think he's been on 5 of our expeditions, so he's always there, and he's a really close friend now. And we were visiting a part of the coast in Svalbard, which we'd been to before. And, we were looking at the charts, and the charts are very sketchy up there, they're not that detailed, but we're going there, and there's a big glacier, and we're going to pass that glacier, and we're going there. We kept looking, thinking, wait a minute, something wrong here, something wrong here. And we'd been there 5 years before, we'd gone through the same passage, and the glacier had gone. I mean, it was like, wait a minute, this whole glacier had just melted within 5 years. And how did that happen? That was truly, truly so shocking. The extension of doing all the work we did in the Arctic, and then we looked at the Scottish Islands, but it became more and more obvious to us that what we have to do is somehow address our urban lives. It's these big cities that we live in, whether it's London or Toronto or New York, LA, Beijing. The carbon footprint of these cities is what's really affecting the amount of CO2 we put into the atmosphere. So how can you take on board looking at a big city and see if the artists can be inspired, not by going up to the Arctic, but almost looking at their front doorstep and saying, how can we go forward? Instead of taking everybody on an expedition to some extraordinary part of the planet, what we did was we actually sat by Lake Ontario and sat still, and we didn't actually physically go anywhere. And what we did was instead of just inviting the scientists in, we also invited the economists in, and also eco-theologians. Where's our spirituality in this? So what we did was to gather 7 informers from each of those disciplines, and then 20 artists, mostly from Canada, but also from the United States and from Mexico. And we gathered, and we just spent 2 or 3 days in a workshop. And the artists were bombarded by information from the informers, which sort of give a cross-section of the complex societies that we live in our urban places. And then said, well, okay, 2 years down the line, we've got a major exhibition at the ROM, the Royal Ontario Museum here in Toronto. You've got the whole gallery, you've got to make a piece of art. You come across other people who are trying to really find a way of changing things and being inspiring, and other companies are trying to do it, new tech companies are trying to do it. And it's hard work, and it's uphill, there's no easy ride. And when we were doing the exhibition at the Toronto, everything that Bullfrog stands for is that same kind of entrepreneurial, inventive, brave kind of small company really trying to make a difference. And in a way, all of those things are what Cape Farewell is. It's not easy to do what we're doing. I guess especially against the pushback that you get from so many quarters. One of the phrases that we coined up for Cape Farewell is climate is culture. You know, we've said we're climate challenge. The scientists aren't causing the problem. It's the way we've evolved our really complex lifestyles that's causing the problem. So therefore it's a cultural issue. And I mean cultural, I mean the widest possible use of the word. You know, that it does incorporate the economics, it does incorporate the manufacturing unit. That is the culture of our society. And it is about thinking and about changing that. So I really would be great if as many people as possible could come and interrogate almost what the artists have done in the exhibition at the ROM, or what the theatre people are doing, and actually kind of go, wait a minute, let me rethink about the way I live my life, or the society I live in.